Depth and complexity icons, making depth and complexity work for me. This session slides can be found here at this bit.ly link or scanning this QR code. My name is Ashley Lovren. I've been teaching in North Shore School District for 10 years, teaching highly capable students and courses for 8 years, currently teaching at Timbercrest Middle School. I've been using the depth and complexity icons and content imperatives since 2017. I linked my Instagram down below. Learning objectives for this session. Identify strategies to launch the icons in any subject or grade level that works for your classroom. Synthesize existing knowledge of depth and complexity icons with new knowledge of the content imperatives. Use icons to differentiate for leveled activities for multi-tiered supports. Apply knowledge of how to incorporate icons into existing lessons and curriculum. I'm so excited to be here today and sharing this information with all of you. So what are the icons? Icons are a framework. It's not a curriculum. It's not a content. It's something that any classroom teacher of any grade, subject, or level can use with all students, all topics. It's a lens, it's a framework, it's how we can view our world, view our subjects. They are symbols that have meaning. They can be used across all subjects and disciplines. If you would like a icon cheat sheet, this bit.ly goes through and gives a picture of each icon, the name of each icon, and a short definition of each icon. And this QR code also gives you that link as well. And you can save that and use it with your students. You can save it for later for you. It's a very handy little cheat sheet. How to introduce the icons. So you could introduce them through a read aloud. And I love using read alouds. I use read alouds a lot in middle school. I use them for all different subjects and grade levels. I can use them for my high cap kids. They are super accessible and they can be very meaningful despite being a picture book. Like there's a lot there. So here are some read alouds that work really, really well with all or a few icons that you want to highlight. So the big orange spot, Emmanuel's Dream, Fly Away Home, Separate is Never Equal, and a splash of red. So you read the read aloud to your students. Oftentimes, most of these read alouds are found on YouTube, and I will find the video, I will play it for my students, and then you can kind of give a short overview of the icons, what they mean, but then ask students to identify rules, patterns, trends, change over time, multiple perspectives within the read aloud. What you could also do is a jigsaw where you assign different icons to different groups. Have them kind of discuss where they found those examples in the story, and they can create a poster. It could be something digital. It could be hands-on with paper. They can draw the icons. They can identify examples that they see. The big orange spot is a very popular one. We introduced the icons to a lot of our students reading the big orange spot, but there's lots of books that you can use. It doesn't always have to be the big orange spot. And if you're working with several teachers that are also using the icons, kind of find different strategies so that every student's not getting like the big orange spot in like every class and every grade if you're using the icons. Another way to introduce the icons is an activity called Frame Yourself. So this is where you can have the students choose any 4 icons to describe yourself. And this template right here is called a frame. You can use this bit.ly to make a copy. You can print it, you can have it be digital, but it's a really great activity to do when you're first getting to know your students at the beginning of the year. Kind of go over the cheat sheet of like which icons mean what. But then I always model this for my students, and in the beginning of the year they're getting to know me as well. So here's just an example of my frame yourself. So choosing like multiple perspectives. I am a teacher, a wife, a mother, a sister, a coworker, a daughter, a best friend, and a fur mom. Those are all my different roles within like who I am. Some details about myself. I have a daughter named Emerson, a husband named Josh, a dog named Marley, and I love reading and Disneyland. Change over time. I've been at my current school since 2012. I grew up in California, but now I live in the Pacific Northwest. Some unanswered questions. What will I teach next? When will my next Disney trip be? What will be my next favorite book I've read? So this is a really fun activity. It's also very approachable for several levels. The students get to choose which icons they are comfortable with and that they're comfortable with sharing. They might surprise you. You can tell them choose any of the 4 icons. I have them do it like the first week or so of school, and I ask students to bring a picture of themselves for an activity that we're going to do. If they don't have the ability to bring in a photo, all of my students have Chromebooks. I've had them just take a picture on the Chromebook and then we print it at school, or I've had students who really like to draw a self-portrait, or they can write their name in the middle. And then I hang them up around the room, just like the first few weeks of school. I usually have it set up right before our curriculum night so that parents and guardians can come in and see all of the frames and they can see their student. And sometimes they might surprise you with what they choose. I've seen students choose trends, and they've said, like, in elementary school, I was really into Pokemon and Pokemon cards, and now in middle school, I'm really into Magic the Gathering. I've seen some different things about like rules that they follow, or kind of like big idea, and they kind of like summarize like this is like who I am and have some adjectives. So it's a very accessible thing. It's a fun little intro activity. You can also use frames and choose like any topic, and then have them choose 4 icons or choose icons themselves, have the topic in the middle, and then how they view those icons. It's a really quick and easy activity that you have like a graphic organizer that is made for you. So what if those don't work for my class? Not everyone wants to do a read aloud. Sometimes that just doesn't fit for like a math or science class, or it's just not your style. Totally fine. Here are some options that you can do. The first one is a mystery grab bag. Get a bunch of big, like the shopping bags, like the reusable shopping bags. Those would be great, or paper sacks or baskets or whatever, and then go around and start collecting items. They could be items in your classroom that relate to your whatever icon. So have like a basket or bag per icon, and then kind of think about like what each icon is. Like for language of the discipline, you could have a dictionary or a glossary or a thesaurus. You could have like a Spanish book, or like print out like math terms, or geography, like different types of landforms, that sort of thing. Anything that kind of shows like language of the discipline, specialized language in each topic, thinking about change over time. Like if you had a really old cell phone, you could put in, like a Razor or a BlackBerry or whatever, like an older iPhone, things that you have like around your classroom that could work. Clean out those closets, anywhere, borrowing things. You could print out things, find things like in a class library, or different supplies that you might have that might fit each of the icon, and just kind of having fun with it. And it's kind of what you have available. If you don't have certain things, you can print stuff and have like the picture, but it is pretty cool just to have like those objects. Then you give different groups a bag, and then ask them to identify which icon the objects relate to. If you don't have those resources, you could do it digitally. I do these in my elective classes. I teach like a technology elective class, and I do the same idea as the grab bags, but I do it digitally. So I have slideshows, and then in each slideshow or each slide, I have pictures that are clues to each icon. So I'll have a collection of clues, and then I'll ask them like, which icon do these clues relate to or connect to? And I will have the original depth and complexity icons, and then I also have the content imperatives. And I use something called Pear Deck, which makes your slides interactive, and then students can write and respond in a slideshow, and they can show you the answers. And it's a really great way to have students go through and kind of work out and make their own connections to the icons. And a big part of the introducing the icons is the activity and the thinking that's involved for them to make connections, whether it's in a read aloud, whether it's thinking about like, which icons relate to me if I'm making a frame, or thinking about their knowledge of the icons and looking at like a list of all the different icons and kind of a quick blurb, and they're like, oh, I think that matches with patterns. So with the digital escape room or the mystery bag, you know your kids best. You know which what they understand, what would fit best within your content area, or whether you're in elementary or secondary, and then figure out which works best for your classroom and what style and what you have available within your classroom, or what books you have. I found most picture books are available on YouTube. A lot of teachers or librarians have turned these incredible picture books into read aloud. So everything is out there. Content imperatives. So these are a level 2 icon. They are not the same as the depth and complexity icons, but they are called content imperatives. They were created with a new grant, and so they're from Jay Taylor's Center for Depth and Complexity, and they are black and white. I really, really like the content imperatives. I have found they are really applicable, especially in some of my English classes, or when I'm talking about things in history or giving like historical context. I found that they enhance the icons, and I use a mixture of them really depending on the topic. But here's the overview. We have origin, kind of think of like a sun rising, thinking about it as like the beginning. Convergence is the coming together. So there's arrows about how kind of events or moments in time, ideas converge together. Paradox is contradictory elements in an event or idea. Parallel, like we see parallels in history, we see, parallel in math, parallel lines, and ideas or events that are similar. Like I can see the parallel between this book and this movie, or these two books have a parallel event. Contribution, the significant part or result of an idea or an event. So kind of think about like a chain reaction. What has led to this event? What contributed to this event? Origins. So breaking it down even further, kind of think about lots of cultures have origin stories, creation tales, thinking about like an origin story of a superhero, the start of it, the root, thinking about like Greek myths, right? What are the origins of it? So bringing it back, I found that this is really helpful in a lot of social studies contexts, as well as English, if you're analyzing like a story, or if you have an ancient civilization unit and you're analyzing like the origins of something, this content imperative pairs really well with those subjects and topics. Convergence. So it's the coming together or meeting points of ideas, thinking about like a convergence of plot, how multiple stories can weave together in like a show or a book, right? How we have each chapter might be a different character's point of view, or following a certain group of characters, and then all of a sudden, like towards the end of the plot, everyone kind of meets up and all of the storylines kind of play together, right? But it can also be a convergence of things like happening in politics, or like moments in history where different movements are happening, and basically convergence is like the meeting point. How does it all kind of connect? Paradox is contradictory elements in an event or an idea. My students have a lot of fun with this, coming up with their own paradox and how you can find examples of paradox. Parallel. Parallel are ideas or events that are similar and can be compared to one another. You can show examples of parallel lines, like parallel lines in a graph in math. We can find parallel lines all around our daily life, like the train tracks or lines on a football field. There's also so many stories out there about parallel universes, like in the Marvel universe, like Spider-Man, one of the last Spider-Man movies, how we had all of these parallel variants kind of show up in the same timeline. I throw in that Spider-Man picture and all my students just get it. So it's sometimes I'll use like the same activities, and then I'll have to go through and like change out like a few pictures or references to what is kind of like popular at the time, like what movies my students are watching, or like graphic novels that they're reading, or things that they're interested in. And when you make those connections, and they can make those connections to things that are important to them, it just makes like that concept that much more powerful. Contributions. It's basically thinking about it like as a chain reaction, as what has happened for these things, like what is the result of it, like all of these things contributed to this event, right? Or all of these things contributed to this, like whatever happens in plot, or if we're talking about events in history, or things in science, right? How to get like a certain discovery or whatever. Contribution is like, how have these things kind of added together to result in an event or an idea or a new finding, that sort of thing. Okay, now we are going to try our own digital mystery breakout session. So go ahead and go to joinpd.com, type in the code JZCTTH, and you can participate in your own asynchronous mystery breakout room. So go ahead and pause the video, go to joinpd.com, type in the code, and try this out for yourself. Welcome back. Okay, now moving on to a really, really great tool called the differentiator. This can be found at depthandcomplexityonline.com. You can also just use these strategies, and the differentiator is a really, really awesome tool that goes in and helps kind of fill in the blanks, and they have all of the different prompts, but I'm going to show you all of like the different parts of it. But it's basically creating ways to level instruction or activities or tasks or projects. So thinking about that, there's 3 levels. Strategic would be for below grade level, or you need support. So think about your classes. Maybe not all of your classes are high cap. Maybe you have some students with IEPs or 504s. Maybe you have students that are at kind of the mid-level or LC level of special education. Strategic would be kind of the student needs support. Proficient would be the student is on grade level. And advanced, that's where we're bringing in like an extension. So a highly capable extension for students. So thinking about how we can use icons, you can, for strategic, kind of use 1 icon, proficient using 2 icons, advanced, you could use 3 icons, or you could kind of blend in the content imperatives. And I'm going to give examples of what that means. So thinking about the thinking skills, so it breaks down into thinking skill, icon, topic, and resources. So when you are making your task statements, there are different aspects that you need to consider. The first is the thinking skill, icon, topic, resources, and product. So thinking skill refers to the depth of knowledge levels. We have the level 1, which is recall. Then there is the level 2, which requires you to think about a skill or a concept. Level 3 is strategic thinking. Level 4 is extended thinking. So what does this mean? So if I were creating a task statement for a strategic group, I would use level 1 depth of knowledge recall. So it might be like memorize or identify or list or label, measure, match, use, repeat, arrange, who, what, where, when, why. Very basic, but it's very tangible for students that need support. They know exactly what they're looking for, and this can be found in whatever resources you are giving them. For proficient, for students who are on grade level, I would use level 2 depth of knowledge, a skill or a concept. So they're applying information that you have taught them organize, separate, classify, right? Cause and effect. Compare these two things. Use context clues. Summarize, show, predict, modify, infer, classify, that sort of thing. And then going on to advanced, I would use level 3 and level 4. So that's strategic thinking and extending thinking. So level 3 looks like construct or explain a phenomena, draw conclusions, hypothesize, critique, formulate, revise, assess, differentiate, draw conclusions. And then level 4 is like bringing it even farther, apply concepts, critique, analyze, create, prove, connect, synthesize, design, that sort of. So this advanced level 3 and 4 allows students to extend their thinking. So we have strategic thinking and then extended thinking. In the same way, you can also use the SAMR model, which stands for substitution. So like technology acts as a direct tool, substitute with no functional change. So like something's done on paper, you can do it using like Google Docs. Augmentation, technology acts as a direct tool, substitute with functional improvements. So like you're enhancing it. Modification, technology allows for significant task redesign. Redefinition is technology allows creation of a new task previously inconceivable. So all of this can work within the SAMR model when you're making these task statements. Icon. So be strategic on which icons you choose and for what level of learners. Some icons may fit better with specific topics. So think about in your, whatever your topic is, whether it's like ancient civilization, like you're doing a study on ancient Egypt, or you're reading a class novel and you're looking at a specific point of the class novel, or you're working on something in math, right? There's going to be a natural fit of icons with specific topics. Also, some icons may be harder to identify within a topic. So like trends versus details. Like trends might be a harder one for students to analyze, or thinking about like ethics. Ethics might be a harder one for students to analyze. So think about how you might use the icons. Also, the number of icons. So like a strategic one, you could use big idea, so that students are kind of like summarizing like what's the main point of this topic. Proficient, maybe talk about using 2 icons, big idea and trends. What is like the summary about it and what are specific trends. Advanced, using 3 icons, or you could use like a content imperative in there. So like overtime trends and the contribution of something for a topic. So topic would be what you're currently teaching or studying. Or are you allowing students to choose their own topic? What parameters are you giving them? So a task statement could be small. It could be within a single lesson that you're having students complete something, learn something, create something. It could also be something that's a larger scale. It could be something that takes place over the course of the unit, or it's like an end assignment that kind of shows all of the learning, and it's this big project. These task statements could also be a learning target or a student growth goal. There's many ways that you could use these task statements. So think about what topic your task statement is on. Are you allowing them to choose their own topic? What parameters are you giving your students. Resources. Resources is the next one. So what resources do they need to complete the assignment? How might you vary the resources based on the learner or the whole student group? So thinking about what would you pick for your strategic student? What would you pick for your proficient student? What would you choose for your advanced student? How might you release them to make decisions on what they're going to use? So thinking about, like, is it from the textbook? Is it from a library book, a magazine, a newspaper, an interview, encyclopedia? Is it interviewing an expert, online, looking at websites? You're going to choose an online encyclopedia, a journal, an article, an expert, using databases for researching. And then what will the final product be for the assignment? How might you vary it depending on the learner? Will you provide a menu of options? So there's visual ones like a chart, a drawing, a timeline, a diagram, a graphic organizer, a map, a comic, a book cover, a poster. Is it going to be building something like construction, a model, a sculpture, a diorama, a miniature, an art gallery, a museum exhibit? Oral, so are they talking? Is it going to be like a play, reader's theater, a press conference, a talk show, a monologue, a movie review, a lesson, a report, a panel discussion, a debate? Is it multimedia, like a song, illustrated book, newspaper, TV show, PowerPoint, video, poetry, photo essay, video travelogue, news report, webpage, written? So all of the different options for written. Like, is it a report? Is it an article? Is it a letter, a children's book, a diary, a journal, right? The options are endless, but it's important to understand, like, it doesn't just have to be a paragraph, right? And so when you have a menu of options, learners can choose like what they're interested in. I use menus all the time, and I try to have different learning styles within the menus of like something you can build, something you can write. And also what I found that is really helpful with high cap students is giving them less limitations. Like, you can create a model. I don't care what medium you choose. It could be clay, it could be cardboard, it could be newspaper clippings, it could be Lego bricks, it could be made using Minecraft. A lot of students love making models in Minecraft, and then I tell them, okay, you need to find a way to present that, to turn it in. Can you screencast your model and talk about it and then submit it as a video? So it doesn't just have to be something that is written, right? A paragraph or an essay. Try to think outside of the box, and how can you vary the different products for different units that you are teaching. So here are examples. This is using the depth and complexity online differentiator. You can go in and add in like, I can blank, so your thinking skill. So this one is strategic, so I'm pulling from depth of knowledge level 1, so I can identify. And then I chose big idea. So big idea is summarizing. It can be more approachable for struggling learners of USC women's basketball team of the 1980s. I will get or organize information using a textbook and share my findings in a chart. So textbook, right? It's something tangible. It's something that it's like limited of where they're going to find this information. Think about how narrow or wide of a focus are you going to give your students. If I know that a student is struggling, I'm not going to just say like, find it on the internet and like, here you go. I'm going to give them exactly where they can find the information, and then thinking about, like for this one, I would have them make a chart. So this one would be someone who's below grade level or needs support. Here is an example of a student who would be on grade level, so proficient. So I can examine. So this is depth of knowledge level 2, trends. So trends prompt students to analyze disruptions or change in patterns over a period of time. It's more complicated than asking them to just summarize and list. Of USC women's basketball team of the 1980s, I will get and organize information using a video. So I'm going to provide them a documentary for them to watch. And then I'm going to have them share my findings in Google Slides. So they're going to make a presentation. So thinking about, right, how narrow or wide of a focus am I giving for the resources, and how am I changing that product? Google Slides, we're adding in technology. And lastly, it would be advanced. So I can evaluate. So now we're in depth of knowledge level 3, adding in trends and contribution, which is a content imperative to add another level of complexity. So I can evaluate the trends and the contributions of the USC women's basketball team of the 1980s. I will get and organize information using a website and share my findings in a museum exhibit. So they're going to have to like create something like a display. So change the product based on the skill level. So you could add in multiple icons. You could add in an icon with a content imperative, and then varying your resources, varying the products that you're having them create. Then you can make a menu or assign it based on groups, kind of groupings like this is your project, this is your project, this is your project, and thinking about what fits best for your students, and also which icons fit best for that topic. All right, so now we are going to compare lessons. So I have 2 lessons. I do not teach PE or health, and I do not teach math, but I reached out to some coworkers. These are a few years old, but I asked to borrow a lesson, and then I went through and layered in icons where there were natural fits, of just kind of showing like this is taking several teachers curriculum and lessons, and then what would I do of like applying the lens of icons. Okay, now looking at those 4 different lessons, think about what is the difference between the 2 lessons. So you could choose either the math lesson or the PE health lesson on fentanyl, and then thinking about what is the difference between the 2 lessons, how do the icons increase student learning within the lesson, identify the ways icons elevate critical thinking and making connections in the lesson. And you can go to this Padlet to share your answer. So you can use the bit.ly link or the QR code to share your thoughts on that activity. So go ahead and pause here to complete the Padlet activity. All right, welcome back. Here is one of my favorite pieces of technology from J. Taylor Education, and it is the Google Chrome extension. So you can go to this link and download the Google Chrome extension, and it will pop up like a toolbar, just like the Bitmoji keyboard. It has a drop-down menu, and it asks like, what type of icon do you want? Do you want the ones that are colored? Do you want them in Spanish? Do you want just the symbols? Do you want the symbols in black and white? Do you need it small? Do you want the words on it? And this is so awesome because you can drag and drop it in anything, like a Google Slides presentation, a Google Doc. You can add it to worksheets so that when you go to print, everything is in black and white and it uses less color. And that's what I find, like if I am using something that's going to be digital, I use full color. If I am using something that's going to be printed and made copies of, I use kind of like the black and white versions, and super, super accessible and so easy just to drag and drop into what you're working on. There is also this available for students. So I have projects where students are answering, like they choose their own topic, and then I have prompts that are based on different icons. And so when they're creating their presentation, they are always asking for the icons. I have them install or go to this website, click on the student one, and then they can grab and get the icons in their slideshows. And they have found that that's very, very helpful if they're using the icons in like a Google Slides. Here is another way. If you're in the classroom, you can make your own foldable worksheets, like you're the expert. So fold it into 8 boxes, and you include your topic in the first square, and then like tell me everything about like the language of discipline, change over time, rules, ethics, trends across disciplines, and then like summarizing the big idea at the end. You can use this bit.ly code to make a copy of this template. You can scan the QR code, but that's an easy thing. Like in the classroom, if you just have paper, fold it. You can have the students draw the different icons like at the top, and then they fill it in, turn it in. It's a really great strategy to use. You can also use Jamboard iconic corners. So if you've ever used Jamboard, you can put a prompt in the middle, and then have each like choose 4 icons that fit with your topic, put them in the corner, and then have your students go in and rename like stickies or boxes, and then they fill it out and then go to each corner. So that's a really easy way. You can use them in Jamboards. This is also another area where the Google Chrome extension is super, super helpful, because then you can just drag and drop in any type of medium. in double entry journals. So these are actually from my students last year when we read one of our class novels. I had students record their learning with double entry journals or DJs, and instead of just making a text to text or text to self or text to world, I also asked them to use icons in their DJs, so connect it to an icon. So this one, we have a student drew the icon ethics. This quote shows that Edie is shy and embarrassed. I wonder why she's so shy and embarrassed. Or thinking about this one, parallel and across disciplines, I can relate to feeling like this. Here are some other ones. So for the 4th of July, my parents are taking me to the Tulalip Reservation. And so then they use parallel. I've heard of the Tulalip Reservation example in my own life, right? I once found a stray dog, but my parents wouldn't let me keep him, just like Edie. So they're finding so that you're using parallel and then connecting it to their own life. When they're making predictions, a lot of students will use unanswered questions or over time, to track as the novel has gone through. It's a really simple way to annotate and use that metacognition. They can add in the symbols that they're making the connections, and the symbols, they layer it in, and they are learning. It's another way to show their learning, and also for them to process and understand their own understanding. They're evaluating their own connections with the content. Here are some examples of photos from different classrooms at my campus. A few years ago, I want to say it was in 2018, our 6th grade team came together after attending WayTag, and we wanted to implement the icons in every classroom. So we had every 6th grade team come in, and we worked as a small group where we got a grant so that everyone could have the posters, the magnets, the student cards, and we had them in our classrooms. And then we talked about how we're going to introduce them, how we're going to use them, and we were having math, science, English, social studies, electives, special education come together and partner, and we had these in the classroom, and then each teacher would use them in different ways, and then the kids can still see, you can walk in different classrooms and see the icons on the board around their classroom in slideshows or activities that we do. And if you're working in multi-grade levels, I teach a lot of 6th grade. I really dive deep at the 6th grade level by introducing the icons with all of my students. And then when they're in 7th and 8th grade, they've already been introduced to the icons, and teachers can just use the icons in their classroom and don't have to spend so much time introing the icons. You only need to intro once, and then they get it. And then it's so graphic that they can see the icon, relate to what it means, and then apply it to whatever lesson that you're working on. Okay, and the rest of this workshop is going to be work time to think about how can you integrate these icons and content imperatives to your own existing lessons and worksheets. So think about, be strategic on which icons you choose and for what level of learner. Some icons may fit better with specific topics. Some icons may be harder to identify within a topic, like trends versus details. And